Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this Week 11 NFL DraftKings main slate. Let's dive right into it. And like I always do here in these videos, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of my cheat sheet, breaking down a couple of game stacks that I like targeting here this week, as well as some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. But you guys all know what I'm about to say next. If you have not joined my Discord channel, my question to you is why? It's completely free to do. You can see it mentioned above here. I'll link it in the description below as well as in the pinned comment below if you want to join that. Over 840 people in there now, talking multiple different sports for DFS, but primarily NFL and NHL on DraftKings. With that being said, let's dive into the cheat sheet here. We're going to kick it off with a couple of games that I like stacking up this week, starting with this game between the Seahawks and 49ers. Now, I truly do believe we can stack up either side of this game. If you wanted to roll out Brock Purdy with a George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, or one of those two cheap wide receivers in Juwan Jennings or Ricky Pearsall, I got no problem with that. I like kind of going to the other side, though, because the 49ers are going to be super popular this week, and the Seattle Seahawks could float under the radar a little bit. You know, I'm looking at Geno Smith right now at this price at $5,700. I'm shooting for 4 or 5x value in my tournament lineups, or 200 to 250 DraftKings points. He's hit 4x value at this price, or 22 plus DraftKings points, in 3 of 9 games this year, and he's hit at least 3x value at that price in 7 of 9 games. So I like stacking him up here with DK Metcalf, and I've mixed in AJ Barner as well, considering the price at $3,100 being such a cheap play here. It brings down the average salary of the stack quite a bit. I'm not going to force that by any means, but again, the cheap salary, it does make sense. DK Metcalf being the number one passing option in this offense, I like him there at that price of $6,500. In a game the Seahawks are likely trailing for the most part and having to throw the ball quite a bit, and being that the 49ers have the second highest implied team total on this slate, sitting at 27.25 points right now, I like putting in 2 studs on the 49ers side of things, kind of hoping all the points go through both of these guys. But again, you can mix in those 2 cheaper wide receivers with Jennings and Pearsall and or George Kittle, assuming he's healthy for Sunday. And then another game that I like targeting here and stacking up this week is this game between the Browns and Saints, and I like stacking up Jameis Winston. Yes, we got the revenge narrative there against his former team, stacking him up with Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman as top 2 wide receivers. You could mix in David Njoku here as well, who's similar in price. I have zero problem with that, but right now I got the top 2 wide receivers in here because that secondary for the New Orleans Saints is not very good, and they traded away their best cornerback in Marshawn Lattimore, and then running it back here with Alvin Kamara, who should continue to see a lot of opportunity go his way, especially with Chris Olave out of the lineup. He's going to be heavily involved in the running game, heavily involved in the passing game, and then just like AJ Barner above here, I mixed in Juwan Johnson to bring down the average salary of this stack because he's so affordable here at $3,400, and again, he's one of those guys who could be sneaky in tournaments. He's got 2 touchdown upside, could have 4 targets in this game and score 2 touchdowns. I'm not going to force it just like the AJ Barner play here, but again, it's a very cheap play and a decent matchup. Now, folks, before we dive into some of these individual plays and stacks here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. You guys have been awesome about doing that so far this year. The channel is truly growing every day, and it's completely free to do so. Again, if you haven't done that yet, I would really appreciate it. All right, now diving into some of these individual plays and stacks here, we're going to kick it off at the quarterback position. Now, I try not to get too carried away with too many quarterbacks on this spreadsheet because I'm basically saying we're starting with this quarterback here, building the stack around that guy, even if it's a mini stack, right? Especially when you're a pocket passer like Goff, Russ, and Tua. But I really do like the spot for all 3 of these guys this week. I'm going to try and get them in one of my 5 tournament lineups that I play. First being Jared Goff here at home. The Lions have an implied team total right now of 30.5 points. They're implied to score 4+ touchdowns in this game, so you could stack up the Lions and then just get out of that game if you wanted to. Mac Jones is going to be starting at the quarterback position for the Jaguars, so I have really no interest in playing any of those guys, but the Lions, they'll be mixed in my lineups this week. Russell Wilson here, I kind of like doing a mini game stack with him, George Pickens, and Zay Flowers, and then just getting out of that game. Russell has been solid, another pocket passer, and that secondary for the Baltimore Ravens isn't very good. That's where you do beat them. My concern with that game, though, is when these 2 teams play against one another, divisional rival, it's such a defensive battle. So I'm probably more hesitant than I should be to get carried away with this game. But overall, if we look at the analytics and matchup, but it does make sense to stack up Russ with those pass catchers and run it back with Zay Flowers. And obviously, if you wanted to mix in Derrick Henry, we know what he can do as well against any defense. And then Tua here, looking at Miami, implied total right now at 25.75 points. We can stack him up with Tyreek Hill, who's due for one of those 30-plus DraftKings point performances sooner than later. And we could run it back there with Brock Bowers, too, at $5,800. But Tua, I just like this spot overall for him. We could do a little double stack with him, Devon Achane, and Tyreek Hill, and get out of that game as well. Now, when it comes to the running backs here, talked about two above in those stacks with Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. Talked about some of my favorite running back plays here in my cash plays video that I posted earlier today. I talk about this week in and week out. A lot of the running back plays in my cash lineups are going to be sprinkled in my tournament lineups as well. But two other guys, and one honorable mention there, who had really good GPP scores in DVOA matchups per FTN this week, were Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers playing the Chicago Bears. David Montgomery, obviously, against the Jags here. Talked about that implied team total when going through Jared Goff. And then Kenneth Walker sitting in a really good spot here against this 49ers defense. He's been heavily involved in the passing game this year. And one of the areas that this defense for the 49ers has struggled with as of late is the running game. So Kenneth Walker, I know I talked about that stack earlier with Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. I absolutely do like that. But there's also a possibility that I build a lineup that has Kenneth Walker, maybe Christian McCaffrey and or Deebo Samuel, do a little mini stack in that game, and then stack up the rest of the lineup with something else. And then we got the wide receivers here. Already talked about George Pickens sitting in a really good spot against that secondary for Baltimore. Same thing with Zay Flowers. He should be able to beat that secondary himself considering his role in that offense. Tyreek Hill name dropped him with Tua Tagovailoa. I do believe that he's got a 30-point DraftKings point performance coming sooner than later. Could easily do it against this Raiders secondary. And then Kelvin Austin is a cheap stacking piece that we can mix in that game with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. He's seen some decent targets go his way considering the routes he's running. The other guy that I want to highlight here, though, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just like David Montgomery, just like Jared Goff, high implied team total. That Jaguars secondary is one of the worst in the NFL. And again, if I'm looking at GPP scores on FTN right now, he is leading all wide receivers. And then I got a few tight ends that I'd be willing to spend up for in my tournament lineups here this week. If you're looking for some of the value tight ends outside of the two that I mentioned in the game stacks above, I did talk about a few here in my cash plays video, and those guys will definitely be sprinkled in my tournament lineups as well. And I even talked about this in my cash plays video earlier today. Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs has been a target monster for them as of late, so I want to try and get him in at least one of my tournament lineups if I can find that money to spend up at this position. TJ Hawkinson at $4,700 looks nice to me. He was really the safety valve for Sam Darnold last week against Jacksonville, and I know that Sam Darnold had his worst game of the season last week, but I think Hawkinson should be locked in for 5+ targets in each game going forward. And then Brock Bowers here. If you want to do a little game stack between Miami and the Raiders, Brock Bowers is the guy for me. I don't mind Jacoby Myers considering his price and the volume that's been going his way, but a tougher matchup against those cornerbacks for Miami. So I'm going to lean on Bowers here in tournaments. I'm not going to force it by any means, but he's been seeing a lot of volume himself, and this is a game where the Raiders are likely trailing most of the game. And then we'll wrap it up there with the defenses. If you can spend up for the Lions against Jacksonville at home or the Vikings on the road against Will Levis and the Titans, I obviously love those spots for both those defenses. Really like the Dolphins here at home against the Raiders. And the Jets taking on Anthony Richardson. With him coming back in the lineup, I kind of like this spot for the Jets. The Broncos at $2,900 were another defense in the 2K range that I like, but the Jets I think could be sneaky playing against AR-15. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks, and let's win some money on this Week 11 main slate.